Hello there, people of the internet. How's everyone doing today? I'm doing alright. Thanks for asking. Today is going to be like kind of a quick video just because I have something I'd like to talk about. It's not really anything that impacting, but it's just an interesting topic that I came across. Not to say that the age difference has any real meaning. However, a lot of your Fudd lore and whatnot comes from these older gentlemen stuck in their older ways with their older generations and older mindsets. And this guy was like the absolute pinnacle definition of that. We weren't talking about modern day assault rifles, quote unquote assault rifles. We weren't discussing politics. We weren't talking about any of that stuff. We were talking about firearms from back in the day that were still, viable options. And this guy wholeheartedly believed that bolt action rifles that were used in, World War I, World War II, these bolt action rifles, well, they were also used like all the way up to Vietnam. However, at that point in time, anyone who wasn't, born and raised in the jungle had a semi-automatic of some sort. Vietnamese also had semi-automatics, but they also had bolt-action rifles. A lot of them did. Anyway, I digress. Me and this gentleman were talking, and he wholeheartedly believed bolt-action rifles were still a viable option. I also agree with that. I 100% believe, although they are not nearly as effective as our modern-day semi-automatic firearms, if it's all you got, a bolt-action rifle can still be a very useful tool. Especially if you're talking about a bolt-action rifle that's chambered in one of the high-caliber rifle cartridges from, back when they used to use that stuff. Nowadays, we use mostly intermediate-caliber stuff. But that's not the point of this discussion. The discussion was that this guy thought bolt-action rifles, et cetera, I've already repeated that plenty of times. However, I was talking to this guy, and he firmly, wholeheartedly believed that the SKS, this rifle right here, was not, absolutely not, a viable option for today's standards. Now, I was a little confused by this, and he really couldn't give me a legitimate answer why. It was more like that was just his ideology. Maybe because this guy also thought that AK-47s were, complete, utter junk. But to think that a bolt-action rifle, a stripper clip-fed bolt-action rifle is a viable option, but a stripper clip-fed semi-automatic SKS is not, I could understand some people might think, reliability might be an issue at some point, maybe. But this guy didn't give that answer. As a matter of fact, he couldn't give any answer. I mean, an SKS, unless it has suffered some sort of internal damage, will be just as reliable as a bolt-action rifle will. If you get crap inside the locking lugs of an SKS, it ain't gonna work. Same as with a bolt-action rifle. If you get crap inside the guide rails of an SKS, it's not going to work. Same as with a bolt-action rifle. Now, the SKS is not nearly as effective as modern-day firearms, but that's not our discussion. Our discussion was that this guy thought bolt-action rifles were as decent as a viable option as modern-day stuff. I don't really understand that, but that's what this guy thought. However, the semi-automatic SKS was not a viable option compared to modern-day stuff. That's just a concept that I didn't really get. I can't really add on to that because I just don't understand where that guy's coming from or why he thought that, and I couldn't really convince this guy otherwise. So that's kind of where this story ends. Like I said, this was going to be kind of a quickie video. I just wanted to share this because it was like mind-boggling, and maybe you guys on the internet could provide some sort of insight. Maybe you can provide some sort of insight. With lack of better wording, I guess I'm just going to repeat myself right there. Now, because I own both an SKS and a bolt-action rifle, I figured, hey, why not come out to the range and, fire them off and see how they compare? Alright, now the SKS I'm going to be running today is a Tool Armory Russian SKS 1953 production. And these things are fed from 10-round stripper clips. Just the round capacity alone, unless you're talking about, the British Enfield series. Round capacity alone puts this above most of your bolt-action rifles from back in the day. Wow, that loaded pretty damn easy. A lot of times these things are a little challenging to load, but I got like a little group of stripper clips set aside, and they're like my good quality stripper clips, and they just seem to load easy. But this time it was like easier than that. So I will argue that the higher caliber rifles, bolt action rifles from back in the day, are more powerful than the SKS's 7.62x39, but that's a different argument. Seeing as most of your, even militaries have realized that most of your combat takes place at around 300 meters or so, this can definitely reach out to there. However, today we're only at about like 50 yards, 45 yards, somewhere in there. I should probably measure this distance at some point. I'm just kind of going based off of looks. Locks open whenever it's empty. That right there is very viable. Some of your bolt action rifles do that whenever the follower doesn't quite let the bolt go up over it, so you know you're empty. One thing I will say, the sight picture is much easier to maintain whenever you don't have to cycle a bolt right in front of your face. So that is very, very nice. However, a bolt action rifle, the receivers on a bolt action rifle are generally going to be pretty small, unless you're talking about something that has a built-in internal buffer tube that goes into the buttstock where the bolt can travel. But that bolt and carrier has to go somewhere. So bolt action rifle, typically it just kind of comes out the back of the gun. Some semi-automatics do that, but on most of them, if it did that, it'd go right into your eye, and you don't want that. Alright, up next, my bolt action rifle of choice, just because I've been wanting to fire this thing for a while now, and now's my chance to fire it on camera. Car 98, this one's sporterized, feeds from 5-round stripper clips. These, I just folded my fingernail. Gotta love that, right? These right here are Ethiopian stripper clips. They're like kind of rusty and dinged up, and they don't work very well. This one is kind of in better shape than the others, but it's still kind of sticky. So I don't really like those. I normally just use the, actually I have one right here. I normally use the Turkish stripper clips just because they're much easier to use, much more comfortable. But that's not what we're going for today. Definitely has more kick. A semi-automatic, as it cycles, will absorb a lot of the recoil, and if you're firing an intermediate cartridge, it has significantly less kick than if you're firing a full power bolt action rifle. The only recoil absorption this right here has is your shoulder, basically. Alright, well, I brought out 2 stripper clips worth of ammo for this thing. Yeah, that was much easier, much less painful since I didn't fold my fingernail back. Look at that folded thumbnail right there. How's that for a thumbnail, huh, YouTube? Let's go ahead and launch some more rounds. Is a bolt action rifle still viable? Yes, not nearly as viable as modern day, you know, intermediate cartridge firearms, especially the semi-automatics. Is the SKS viable? Yeah, not as viable as, you know, the modern day semi-automatic intermediate cartridge firing rifles. However, if you throw a 30-round magazine that's detachable into the SKS, it's a little bit more viable, but those things can be kind of tricky, especially if you're trying to like load in a hurry. Not great option, but not the worst. The AK-47 is definitely more viable than the SKS just because of its simpler piston-driven design, its detachable standard capacity 30-round magazine. It's generally a shorter rifle as well, generally lighter as well. The receiver is just folded sheet metal, so it is also, in a sense, easier to manufacture. I would say that makes them cheaper, but it doesn't. But that's just because modern AK-47s are still being produced, and to my knowledge, SKSs are no longer being produced. So at some point in time, these are going to be more than the AK-47s, but that's down the road, and that's not, you know, the discussion. Honestly, I should have brought some more ammo out because I was having a good time blasting off rounds, but I don't have any more ammo for either of these rifles. I do have another video to make, so I will be breaking out more ammo for that video right there. However, that is a different video. So let me know what you guys think down below. I mean, maybe there's some logic here that I'm missing. Maybe a bolt action rifle is in fact a viable option and the SKS is not. I wholeheartedly disagree with that, but I mean, other people's insights are where we get opinion-changing information. So let me know down below what your thoughts are if you have anything to add to this conversation. That being said, thanks for watching, guys. Like the video if you like the video. If you like this kind of crap, subscribe. I do this all the time, as you can see from my car down there. All of that car has been, you know, recorded and stuck up on this channel. You know, you can see that car going from new to its state if you just like look back in the history of this channel. Go ahead and check out the Patreon page. I got some cool Q&As on there. You don't have to be a Patreon to check it out or to ask questions. YouTube's very anti-gun right now, so just to play it safe, I went ahead and I made a second YouTube channel. There's nothing real special going on there. I just like get drunk and play video games. It's a lot of fun, to be honest, but I also get a lot of hangovers now. If you guys have a story that is similar to this, like just Fudd logic being Fudd logic and doesn't really make sense, let me know down below. I know one time I met a guy who like wholeheartedly believed that the 22 long rifle was the deadliest cartridge that mankind has ever created. However, a 9mm was an underpowered round because it was less than a 45. Like, just the logic out there doesn't really pan out, make sense, doesn't meet up with itself. Just some of those things that you like scratch your head about and you're like, how the hell is this guy still alive? Okay, what time is it? Oh yeah, I gotta go. You guys go off, have a fantastic day, thanks for watching. Since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. Poor man's Garen. Shame that bolt action shotguns aren't more mainstream.